later on. Today we are going to see about steady and the constant state of stability of electric drive. See, the drive is said to be on equilibrium if the torque developed by the motor exactly is equal to the when we are saying it's equilibrium, the motor torque is equal to the load torque. That's a thing we can say the drive is in that equilibrium condition. The TL is equal to TL. Load torque, if it is load torque is equal to motor torque, then we will say the drive is in equilibrium condition. Then if the drive comes out the state of the equilibrium due to some disturbance, it comes back to steady state for the stable equilibrium. But unstable equilibrium, the speed of the drive increases uncontrollably or it decreases to 0. When the drive comes out the state of equilibrium, preserves it as steady state at a different speed, which is lying in a small range. It is said to be a neutral range. Then this stability of the motor load combination is defined as the capacity of the system which enables to develop the forces. Here it is used to develop the forces, enable and develop the forces such as the nature to the restore the equilibrium after a small departure. Because if it is previously not in equilibrium, so here it is restore the equilibrium after a small departure. Then the changes from the state of equilibrium takes place slowly, and the effect of either the inertia or the index is insignificant as steady state stability. The sudden and fast changes from the equilibrium state, so effect of both inertia and induction cannot be neglected, dynamic or transient stability. So the criteria for steady state stability are: now the equilibrium of the torques and the speed is Tm and TL and omega. The small deviations are delta Tm and delta TL. Delta in the sense the variations from that Tm. Tm means motor torque and TL is load torque and speed is omega. So small deviations are del m, del L and del omega. After the displacement from the equilibrium state, the torque equation will becomes like J omega d omega by dt plus J into d del omega by dt plus TL del L minus Tm minus del Tm equal to 0. But here it's this J d omega by dt plus TL minus Tm equal to 0. This term and this term will become a 0. So the above equation will become J into d del omega by dt plus del L minus del m equal to 0. Considering the small deviation, changes can be expressed as a linear function of changes in speed. From that torque equation, where all quantities are expressed in terms of their deviations from the particular equilibrium. Now the del Tm equal to dTm divided by dW into del omega into dl del equal to dTl divided by d omega into del omega. See, this del omega is nothing but a dTm divided by dm with respect to the del omega. Likewise, TL also same as here. Then j d del omega by dt plus dl by d omega minus dm by d omega del omega equal to 0. The equation will become like this. Then del omega equal to del omega 0 e to the power 1 minus j into dl d minus dl divided by dm minus dtm divided by dt. Then that will become del omega equal to del omega e to the power of 1 minus d dtn divided by d omega minus dt omega by dw into t, where del omega 0 is the initial value of the deviation in the speed, because as we said already, the omega means 0. This omega or w we can say it is equal to speed. Omega is nothing but the speed. Here it is in 0 means that is in that initial condition. So if it is that initial condition, the deviation of differentiation, del means the differentiation or deviation is initially is 0. For stable system, the exponent must be negative. The exponent must be negative, so speed increment will disappear with the time. The exponent will also be a negative. The exponents will also be a negative when if it is the dTL by d omega minus dTm divided by dm is greater than the 0. If it is greater than the 0, then this exponent will be negative over it. Then criteria for this steady state stability is for a decrease in the speed of the motor torque must be exceed the low torque, and for increase in the speed of the motor torque must be lesser than the low torque. What we are trying to say here, see the criteria of steady state ability. For decrease the speed of the motor torque, if you want to decrease the speed of the motor torque, it must exceed the load torque. It must exceed the load torque, and for increase in the speed, the motor torque must be lesser than the load torque. That's the main thing over this steady state stability. If the motor torque is high and if the load torque will be high, what will happen? The steady state stability decrease when the motor torque is more than the load torque. Then the steady state stability is decreased. If the steady state stability is increased, the motor torque is lesser than the load torque. That is the main concept of this steady state. Then the load torque TL results in the stable equilibrium point, and the load torque TS is results on unstable situation. See, you can see in the diagram. In the diagram is for that W and T. Here you can see that TL dash as well as TL double dash and TL. This one's low torque 1 and this low torque 2, and then this is the motor torque. This is the curve between the torque and speed. What we are saying here, see for that steady state ability if decreases, the motor torque is high. Here the motor torque is exceeds from the load torque. So steady state is decreased. If it is motor torque is high, if it is the motor torque is low, you can see here motor torque must be lesser than the load torque. So the steady state stability will increase. The thing is the load should be high in that steady state is to be increased. Then to check the stability at an operating point, the motor can be if an increase in the speed brings a greater. Then it increase in the load, then the motor torque, the speed will tend to decrease and return to its original value. So that operating point will be stable point, else operating point will be unstable. Why? Because of this, to check the stability, the operating system of the motor, whether it increases or greater increases in the load torque, that will tend to decrease. As we said before, if the motor torque is high, then the steady state decrease. If the motor torque is low, then the steady state of load torque will be high. This will denoted here. So the operating point will be stable point, hence operating point will be unstable point. That's all about steady and the transmission stability of the derivative. Thank you.